Well, welcome everybody to the monthly Tennessee Native Plant Society seminar. Um, my name is Tim Kaltenbach. We're giving Karen Hill a break. Um, so that she doesn't have to host all of these anymore. And we have a great presenter tonight. But before we do that, I wanted to mention that we've got some seminars coming up. The newsletter, the TNPS newsletter, will come out in March. So that's where we announce many of our activities. But just to give you a heads up, in February on the 18th, we have Anthony Trimboli of Backyard Ecology, and he's going to talk on keystone trees and shrubs for the volunteer state. Anthony operates, I don't know if it's a company. I think he has a nursery, and he also operates a service where he coaches people on how to build ecosystems in their yards. So he's going to be a good one. And then in March, we have Bika Punkochar from Neighbors for Native Plants, and she and her organization are involved in urban habitat restoration, and that's going to be really interesting. So we've got also April, May, and June lined up, and you can look on the website for those. But for tonight, we have with us Connie Deegan. And Connie is a naturalist um, for the city of Johnson City in eastern Tennessee. She specializes in herpetology, and snakes are her area of expertise. Connie does all kinds of seasonal nature camps. She even writes a weekly nature series called Naturally Yours. And in Johnson City and its parks, she literally designs the trail and is in charge of construction of them, signage, maps. She even maintains them or oversees maintenance. And her basic thing is to stress, and this is our subject, native plants and nature-based connections. So I think this is going to be perfect tonight. Um, we have native plants. That's our thing, and we create little ecologies, and there might be snakes in there. And I'm always thrilled when I see one in my setting. Connie has won a lot of awards. The Tennessee Wildlife Federation recently awarded her a Conservation Achievement Award as Conservation Educator of the Year. She also won a Community Partner Award from Eastern Tennessee State University, the Clemmer College. And she, we were discussing this earlier. This is very interesting. She is a motorcycle instructor and rides a motorcycle. So I think what we'll do is Connie will speak, and then if you have questions, you should put them in the chat, and then we'll go over those. But Connie will also leave time at the end for questions, so we'll be able to do that too. But right now, we are just thrilled to have you, Connie. Your expertise sounds quite deep, and we're interested in hearing your presentation tonight.
All right. Well, thank you so much. It's great to be here, and thank you for being here. Um, I think what I'm going to do is, and this is going to sound strange, but I find that when people want to learn about snakes, they are very interested in what happens in the very rare event of a snake bite. So I'm going to get that out of the way in the beginning because I certainly don't want to end with that stuff. I want to get that out of the way now. And I'm also probably going to absolve a few myths that people may have had in the process. So here we go. And this is going to make you laugh. The first thing that you should do if you are ever bitten by a snake is remain calm. Good luck with that. But what I mean is, a lot of times when people realize what happened, they freak out. And they may, let's say they're hiking and they're near a cliff. They can literally get so hysterical to get away from the snake that they'll turn around and just blindly run off the cliff or run into a tree. So what I mean by is just assess the situation, say this is going to be a bad day, and get yourself about 20 or 30 feet away from the snake. All right. Once you've done that, the next thing you might want to consider is to remove anything like rings or bracelets or belts, anything that constrict any part of your body. Loosen your shoelaces. And now you're in a seated position and you're sitting there. And this is probably a good time to bring this up. There are, because every time I do this talk, I'll go online and check. You can still buy snake bite kits. I have found them for $4.95 and I have found them for, I think it was $79.95. If you have one, you can throw it out. They don't work. They've never worked. And what I mean by a snake bite kit is either a mechanical device that'll suck the venom out, or a sharp utensil or something that will allow you to kind of tourniquet yourself and suck the venom out. It doesn't work. If you think of the venom's delivery system, venomous snakes have fangs. They are hollow. They are attached to venom sacs in the back of their head. Those are squeezed. The venom is shot out through the hollow fangs, and they're curved. So you don't even have a direct way to get to the venom anyway. It's not like it's just below the skin in a straight line. It's not in a straight line, and it's well below the skin. Even a smaller venomous snake, something as small as 2 feet, is still going to drop its venom a quarter of an inch below the skin. So don't waste time with that. Another thing you want to do, here's another myth: never tourniquet yourself. 85% of the time, bites happen below the knee. So a lot of times people would want to take out their bandana or whatnot and make a tourniquet. And what that does is, I think people do that because of the belief that I got to keep the venom away from my heart. I got to keep it away from my heart. Don't worry about it. You don't have to keep it away from your heart. Our venomous snakes in Tennessee are all pit vipers, and they have a venom which affects your blood, but it takes much longer than snakes from other countries, which affect the nervous system. So what you really want to do is allow the venom to kind of dissipate and dilute itself by moving through your body. Because if you take a bandana and you got bit in the ankle and you close off your blood supply, you're going to end up with a serious problem with your lower extremity because you've kept all the venom down there. So no tourniquets. Also, while we're at it, don't take any NSAID pain relievers, like ibuprofen, aspirin, Motrin, because that kind of thins the blood, and it will also can contribute to blood clotting with the venom. So just don't take anything. Don't put ice on the bite, because if you do that, that has the potential. It's not as dramatic, but it will still tend to keep the venom in one place because the blood's going to move very slowly around the bite area. So no ice. Don't try to capture the snake. Don't try to take a picture of the snake, because once again, the 4 venomous species that we have in Tennessee all are pit vipers, which means that they all use the same antivenom. Now, if you're traveling in Costa Rica or something like that, and the snake's right there, yeah, take a picture of it, because they have different types of snakes with different types of venom going on. But in the state of Tennessee, you don't have to. What else do we have? At that point, if you have, let's say you're a hiker and you have a backpack, if you have a pen, take it out, circle the bite area, write down the time. You were bitten at 9:30. And if you think of it, and I know I'm asking a lot, but if you think of it, you can set your clock to go off like every 20 minutes and then go back in when it goes off again at 10 to 10 and circle, because you're going to have swelling. And what you're doing is you're circling it and you're tracking how quickly the swelling is occurring across your thigh or wherever you were bitten. And that's really going to help when you get to the hospital for treatment. And then all of that, believe it or not, really wouldn't take very long. I know it sounds like it would take an hour, but just get away from the snake, sit down, take off rings and bracelets, take out a pen, write down the time. Now you're going to revisit calm again, and you're going to sit there and you're going to come up with a plan. And it depends on where you are. If you're in the yard, working in the garden, that's one thing. But if you are a hiker and you're on the trail, the best thing you can do is take out your phone and call 911. The only thing that is going to save you from tissue damage, it's highly, highly unlikely that you will die from snake bite. Highly unlikely. But if you don't treat it, you'll have tissue damage. And the only way that you can prevent that is with antivenom. There's a lot of myths out there that if you take, I don't know, Benadryl, that'll help. It won't help. Antibiotics, it's not going to help. Steroids, it's not going to help. You need antivenom. So if you're, let's say you're on a trail and you take out your phone, you would call 911. But let's say you take out your phone and you don't have coverage. Well, then you have to make a choice. And it is better to walk towards help than to sit and wait. So if you can say to yourself, well, you know what? Say you're by yourself. If you weren't by yourself, you would send your friend to go running off and make this all happen. And you could take advantage of slowly walking back out, knowing that your buddy's getting to the car or making the phone call for you because they can probably move faster than you can. But you you have to decide, like, well, you know, about a mile back there was an intersection, and there was an intersection with a trail that was heavily traveled, so I'm going to walk back to that intersection. I might take a 5 or 10 minute break there, and I might wait and see if somebody else walks by, and then you tell that person, and hopefully they go, well, I guess I'm not doing what I was going to do today. I'm going to help you. I will go and assist in this. But I'm telling you, unless you have physical complications, if you're a normal person, you have a big fat 6 hour window before you need the antivenom. So you have time. So unless you're deep in the woods, you've got time to walk the 3 miles back to your car, get in your car, be careful driving because you're not going to be feeling great, and get yourself to an urgent care or a hospital. Let me take a peek here. Don't wait for symptoms to appear. Every once in a while, somebody's like, well, it doesn't seem bad. And what I mean by tissue damage is it's going to, if you don't treat a bite, you may have, depending upon the bite, you may have a big patch of skin where you're never going to have feeling again. You may have skin that's going to basically rot off and take a long time to heal. And you don't want that to happen. So that's why you really want the antivenom. Also, be aware of what your phone can do if you're out in the middle of nowhere. Even phones these days, and I don't know when it started. I think it may have started with the iPhone 14. It definitely, the 15s have it. Even where you don't have coverage, you can send a text, an emergency text out. So be familiar with your phone and how to use it. You can easily Google that. Just look up what you have on your phone and just look up emergency text, and they'll tell you how to make that happen, because you don't want to try to figure that out when you need it. You want to know how to do it ahead of time. All righty. When you get to the hospital, you have to advocate for yourself. Many doctors never treat snake bite. They just don't see it. It's very, very rare. If I asked you, I'll ask you now, in your head, in the state of Tennessee, in a 1 year period, come up with a number that you think represents the number of people that have been bitten by a snake. And I bet it's a lot higher than it really is. I bet it's a lot higher. We only have well, I'm going to save that for the end. All righty, because it just doesn't happen very often. So the disadvantage is when you go in for treatment, a lot of times doctors really don't know what to do. And they will try to give you antibiotics, and they will try to give you steroids, or they will say, we're just going to watch and see what happens. You need antivenom, and you need to advocate for yourself. There is an awesome, awesome website. It's a Facebook group. I don't join many Facebook groups. I'm really picky about it. It's called National Snakebite Support. And you may want to write that down or remember it. And they are an awesome site. And they have written up everything I just told you with even more detail. and they are the envenomation specialists in the country. I believe they are out of Texas. So these are the men and women that know the most about snake venom and snake bite. So you can literally, you can follow the page and learn stuff because they're always throwing up what to do in case of a snake bite or what to do when you get to the hospital. And those two pieces of information you can print off and stick them someplace where you know where they are in your glove compartment or in your next to your gardening tools. And you'll always have access to them. But if you needed to, you could write to them and say, I am in Washington County, Tennessee. I was just bit by what I think was a copperhead. What do I do? And they will write back to you. And when they write back to you, the conversation is totally between you and them. And if any other person that is watching as this unfolds makes a comment like, oh, you poor person, I'm so sorry, boom, you are booted from the website and they will never let you back on. And they make that really, really clear. They have very strict rules. So they will walk you through exactly what you need to do. And if you end up in a hospital with a doctor who is reluctant to give you antivenom, you can say, will you talk to this doctor? And they will pick up the phone and call your doctor and have a conversation. And doctor to doctor, they will deliver the correct information between the two of them, and you'll probably get treatment. I can't blame the doctors that don't know what to do. That's an amazing job. They have to know a bazillion things. And if you don't treat something ever and you get it 40 years into your practice, you're like, oh, I don't know what to do. So anyway, so there's a source of information for people that want more information. Also, another site that I like is called Wild Snakes Education and Discussion. And there is where you will learn. You'll see the same people are always like, you have to give your location. I'm in Polk County, Tennessee. I saw this snake, and you have to have a picture, and they will tell you what the snake is. And if you spend some time on that because you're interested, you will learn the names of the different snakes that we have. So those are for people who want that info. And that was once again Wild Snakes Education and Discussion. Okay, so how do we tell the difference between venomous snakes and non-venomous snakes? All righty then. Now, I am going to tell you the way 95% of the people tell you, and then I'm going to fix it. All righty? So I want you to bear with me. I'm going to talk really fast. This is how people tell venomous snakes from non-venomous snakes. They say a non-venomous snake has a round pupil like we do. A venomous snake has a slit pupil like a cat's eye is in bright sunlight. A non-venomous snake has a head that pretty much goes right into the body. Their head is not much bigger than the width of their body. Whereas a venomous snake has, they usually say, a triangular head. And then on the belly, from the chin to the tip of the tail, snakes have scales. Belly scales will have one, all the way down to the vent. The vent is where a snake breeds, lays eggs, goes to the bathroom. Below that, in the vent, in a non-venomous snake, they have two to the tail tip. In a venomous snake, they have one, all the way from the chin to the tail tip. Okay. So let's talk about that. How close to a snake do you have to be to see its pupil? That's just insane. That's nuts. And not only that, I have a picture of a copperhead that has a round pupil because their pupils do what everybody else's pupils do. Your cats have round pupils sometimes in dull light, don't they? When it's dark out or getting dark, they need more light to be able to see. So they like lose the slit and their pupil opens up. So you can't go by that. And the shape of the head is just not exact enough for me. It's too subjective. I'm in the woods. I see a snake. I want to catch it because that's what I do. And I'm like, oh man, is that a triangle head? And the snake's moving and I'm moving. And what if I guess wrong? I don't like that. I never would use that as an identification criteria ever. And the belly scales, that's nuts. What are you gonna do? Flip a snake over and look at its belly scales? You think it's gonna lie there for that? It's not. And there's exceptions. There's always exceptions in nature. We have a non-venomous snake whose belly scales would indicate that it's a venomous snake, the hognose. We don't have coral snakes here, but we have them close. They're in South Carolina, and they have a round pupil all the time. So And another thing, I know you know this, there's something in nature called mimicry. And a great example that you're probably familiar with is the monarch butterfly, you know, is toxic because it feeds on milkweed and only milkweed. It feeds on milkweed as a caterpillar, but it maintains that toxicity throughout its adult life. So even as an adult butterfly, it's still toxic. Birds from thousands and thousands and thousands of years know this on a level that we will, they just know it. They're born with this. There's another butterfly called the viceroy, same coloration. And the viceroy, he's mimicking the colors of the monarch, and it benefits from that, even though it is not toxic. All right, that's mimicry. So we have snakes. I have caught snakes that are non-venomous, and I know it, and they flail, they flatten their head and they flail that back part, and all of a sudden their head looks triangular. And I'm like, but you're just a rat snake, you're just a garter snake. So none of this works for me, and I don't like it when people teach that. Here's another handy thing. There's little poems. There are, I like talking about snakes that live where I live, but just to make this point, the coral snake we don't have here. It's a red, black, and yellow snake. There's a scarlet king snake and a scarlet snake, which are also red, black, and yellow. It depends on the order of the colors. So these little poems help you decide which snake is venomous and which snake is non-venomous. You got your red touch yellow, kills a fellow. You got red touch black, venom lack. You got yellow touches red, soon you'll be dead. Red touches black, friend of Jack. Okay, do you have that memorized? So now you're going to tell me which is the venomous snake. Which one is it? Which one is it? I mean, that's just nuts. I'm sorry. You're going to say a poem. What if you say it wrong? What if you say it backwards? Forget it. I would never use that. I would just learn what the snake looks like. So when I was a little kid and I caught my first snake, I did a dopey thing. I was looking for toads in the backyard. And I flipped the rock and I saw two snakes. And I always thought snakes were the coolest, but I never thought I was going to be lucky enough to see them. And so there they were. I tried to catch them both. I missed one. I caught one. And that night, I kept it. I put it in an aquarium. I always had these little aquariums all set up. I showed my mom. She wasn't too excited. I showed my dad when he came home. And then we sat down and had the talk. And he said, look, you know, and I know that there are snakes out there that if they bite you, they can hurt you. So you've got to learn what snakes you can handle and what snakes you can't handle. And I was in fourth, it was a summer after fourth grade. Granted, they only have 14 species of snakes in Massachusetts where I lived, but I learned what the venomous snakes were based on their colors and patterns. That just made so much sense to me as a little kid. And I've always done it that way, always. So I'm going to show you, oh, sorry, I got to go back here. Here's your beautiful king snake. And there's your coral snake. He's the venomous guy. But, you know, and because I've studied snakes, I clearly see the difference. But if you don't, leave them alone. Don't pick them up.
Connie, we can't see it.
Oh, you can't see it?
We're on your our starting screen. Your
Oh, you're on the starting screen. Oh, okay, that's weird. Um,
Can you go to your slideshow?
um, I'm gonna go back to there. Are you seeing anything yet?
Yeah, we can see your slides down the side.
So no main slide, and I can't get to.
Do you want to go back? Remember where we were, slideshow on that
Yeah.
top, going towards the top toolbar?
Um, yeah, nothing's happening. It says I'm.
think it started with start from first slide.
It did, but I don't see that anymore. All right, I'm going to go out of everything and slideshow. Yeah, this is totally different. And it's not letting me click on it. It's almost like it thinks it's going.
Try clicking on view first.
Okay. View, got it.
I had hopes.
Um,
Yeah, it's funny because I see your slideshow option is grayed out as though you can't choose it.
yeah, I can't.
That's just bizarre. Can you can you manipulate those slides that appear on the left side, down the left side? There's a slide bar in there. Does that move for you?
Mm,
There
it's
you go.
confusing. Okay, good. We'll do it that way. Sorry, guys. Okay. So here is the slide that was up when I was trying to explain about venomous snakes and non-venomous snakes and how many people teach that. Here are the little handy poems. And here now, this is the king snake. And here's your coral snake. So you're in the woods and you want to catch a snake and it's red, black, and yellow. You gonna remember those poems? No, you're not gonna remember those poems. All right. So are the slides moving along now?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I think we have a problem because we ran out of slides in like a minute. But anyway, let me go to the next slide and see if they populate. I did want to show you briefly a couple venomous snakes. This is a copperhead. This is a juvenile. It's got a yellow tail. It'll often use that, wave it around, and attract smaller amphibians and things like that. And then grab them when they come close. Sometimes people say that the dark marks on the side remind them of those foil covered Hershey Kisses, and that helps as an identifier. But I'm just saying that if you had an interest in learning the snakes, the venomous snakes where you live in Eastern Tennessee, it is the copperhead and the timber rattlesnake. In Western Tennessee, Nashville West, you can add the cottonmouth, also known as the water moccasin, and the pygmy rattlesnake. So if you want to, and you went online every day and you look at like 3 pictures of copperheads or 3 pictures of water moccasins, do that for 2 weeks, you're going to know what they look like. If you don't care, then don't do it. Here's another copperhead. I'm going to click on this neck. Oh, good, they are there. Now here's a copperhead with a round pupil. So there you go. This was taken with a special camera close to sunset. Let me move this down here. What else do we have? Here is a timber rattlesnake. He has a chevron pattern. It's kind of a thick band that points towards his tail tip. They can kind of be in a yellow phase, a brown phase, or a black phase. All right, now I'm going to show you a couple of, and this is not a snake identification class. I'm just showing you some snakes that I see all the time. I always catch snakes. Whenever I see a snake, if it's non-venomous, I try to catch it because I've just always done that. So I always keep track. Last year I caught 26 and I had a short year because I had surgery and I was done catching snakes in August. Mostly what I catch are garter snakes. This is a snake that If you've seen a snake, it's highly likely you've seen one of these guys. They're a very dark green or a black and yellow stripe from head to toe, head to tip. There is another snake that looks very much like it called the ribbon snake. So if you see a snake that looks like that, it's either a garter or a ribbon. It is non-venomous. It is clearly not a timber rattlesnake or a copperhead. There's another picture of them. I catch most of my snakes in the spring. That's when they breed. Females leave a pheromone trail as they cruise along on the ground. And one day I was taking a hike and I saw this snake go shooting across the trail ahead of me. And then I saw 3 other snakes going boom, 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 right after the first snake. And I said, that's a girl snake being chased by 3 boy snakes. And so I caught 2 of them. And those are garter snakes once again. This is a rat snake. This is another very, very common snake. This is our largest non-venomous snake. They're all over the place. He's my record large snake that I've ever caught when I lived in Rhode Island. They're pretty much found on the East Coast. I caught one that was 7.5 feet. Around here, they usually get to 6, maybe 6.5, but they're big snakes. This is a racer. I'm showing you 3 black snakes in a row. You got your rat, you got your black racer, and you have a king snake. The king snake does have some white marks down towards the belly. But if you looked at any of those snakes, you would say, that's a black snake. So if you have a black rat, a black racer, and a black king snake, they're all black. They're all non-venomous. For me, if I see a black snake, I'm going to try to catch it. Now, I used to breed snakes, but one thing that happens every summer is, and here's what happened with this clutch of eggs. I got a phone call from a woman. She was like freaking out because she found a big snake in her bag of compost in her garage. And her boyfriend was on the way over and the boyfriend was going to kill the snake. And I said, can you just leave it alone? It's probably a female. It's in the compost bag because the compost bag is in your garage and the compost bag is probably a couple degrees warmer than everything else. And she's probably laying a clutch of eggs because I knew what time of year it was. So she promised she'd leave it alone. I went to her house on the way to work the next day. I found the eggs. I had to take them, which is illegal because if I didn't, she was going to kill them. And then I hatched them out and I released them. So I just wanted to point out that it's rare for a baby snake to not look like what it's going to look like as an adult. But in this case, with rat snakes and racers, they're very patterned as young snakes. And then they darken up as they grow and they become a totally black snake. So there's a couple of oddball things like that. But when I think of snakes and IDing snakes, I compare it to birds. I am not a good birder. I don't know how birders do it. There are males, there are females, there are summer, their summer wardrobe, their winter wardrobe. There's the migratory birds. There's the weird birds that just show up. So to me, there's only 23 species of snakes in Northeast Tennessee. That's all I have to mention. I mean, that's all I have to memorize with a couple of weird oddball patterns thrown in. All right, we'll stop here for a minute. So what I wanted to do is all my life I've said, and I know it's been a correct statement, that snake bite is really quite rare, but I wanted to get some factual data. And one day I thought, if I could find the person that's responsible for keeping track of the anti-venom in the hospitals, then I could probably come up with some legitimate data. I found this woman, she works for Ballard, and she was awesome. She was wonderful. And she gave me all the data for 2021 and 2022. And 2022 was still considered a pandemic year. So in other words, there are even more people outside than normal doing outside things, fishing, recreation, biking. And she gave me, I asked her if she would give me all the snake bites where anti-venom was used in our area and the age of the person, where the person lived, where on their body they were bit, and what they were doing at that time. And she gave me data for 17 bites. 17 bites were the only bites that we had in that 2-year period. She pulled the data from 29 counties. Those 29 counties were found in Northeast Tennessee, Southwest Virginia, Southeast Kentucky, and Northwest North Carolina. That represented Ballard's area that they're responsible for, and that included 20 hospitals. And that also includes a couple million people. All right, so that's not a lot of bites. So instead of taking the time, because I don't think I'll have the time to read all that data, I'm just going to summarize it. So I'm going to peek at my papers here. 2 people were bitten while they were working in their chicken coops. One person was bit feeding their dogs in the barn. One little kid was bit while playing. She picked up a snake. One child was bit while playing hide and seek with grandma. One person was dismantling a concrete block wall. One person stepped on one while on the porch. One person stepped on one while walking in the yard. One person's got bit when they were taking laundry out of their laundry basket. That's pretty weird. One person was outside at night, went outside to go back to the car to turn off a light. One person was bit while reaching down to unzipper their boat cover. One person was bit while hiking, and 5 people were bit while working in their yard. Now, I could have changed those numbers because you don't know the numbers. I mean, I could have changed data, but the sad part for you is, since you're all native plant people, 5 people work in the yard. But let's go back and talk about that. I wasn't there. I didn't see the bite. But when I read this list, and when I read the additional detail that I know, where they were bit and what they were doing at the time, here's my theory. On most of these bites, these people played a serious role in their snake bite. Okay. Chicken coops are snake restaurants. They're in there because there's chickens in there. They're in there because there's mice and rats in there, because there's chicken feed in there. They're in there because they love to eat chicken eggs. So make your chicken coop snake proof. You can do that. Otherwise, you are going to have snakes, and they're going to keep coming because it's just a free place for food. So I have to say that those people played a role in their bite. The one guy feeding his dogs in the barn, he should really consider moving the food bowls to a more open area. Maybe he had it kind of tucked into the corner where it would offer snakes cover, because dogs are going to make a mess. Little bits of food are probably going to hit the floor. Mice and rats are going to figure that out in no time. They're going to come check that site every day after those dogs are fed, which means they're going to attract snakes. The snakes are going to come and they're going to hang out and they're going to eat the mice and rats that are attracted to the food. So that guy should consider a different location with less cover for snakes to hide in. Little kids playing. Did that little kid ever get the snake talk? Did they ever get a snake talk? Because when I was a little kid, I picked up anything that moved. I just wanted to pick it up. So I don't know. And kids saw the snake and went, oh, that's cool. Picked it up and got bit. Playing hide and seek with grandma. I feel really sorry for grandma. Obviously they were hurrying and hiding and maybe fitting into a tiny little spot, and the child was bit. Dismantling a concrete wall. I can just see that, putting my hands in the concrete block wall and pulling them off. There was a snake in there. Perfect place for a snake to hide. So maybe he should have been a little bit more diligent about looking. Stepped on while on the porch. Kind of watch where you're walking. Stepped on while walking in the yard. Same thing. If you think you're in a snaky area, keep your eyes peeled. Laundry basket. I don't have a clue. The woman must have, this was an older woman. She must have put the laundry in the basket, and maybe it retained heat enough to entice a snake to get in there, crawl into the basket. And then by the time she was unloading it, the snake was in there and she got bit. Can't really blame her. That's just an odd circumstance. Going outside at night back to your car to turn off lights, not a good idea with your bare feet. The boat, I don't know. Could you look a little harder? Don't know. Hiking, no idea. But did the hiker step on the log and look on the other side before they stepped off? Or did they just step over it and there was a snake there? Our snakes are ambush hunters, all of our snakes. What that means is they stop and they pick a spot and they wait, and they will often pick a log because a prey animal might come along, hit the log, and then run on down the log till it can get to the other side and go around it. So a lot of times they'll lie there. I don't know. And I don't even know if there was a log involved. I'm just saying I wasn't there. It could have been the hiker's fault. And then working in the yard, that's where it gets a little dicey. I work in my yard all the time. I have a really cool garden, and all native, of course. And my stuff is really high because I wish I'd done it differently, but I didn't. And it's actually pretty cool. But where I live, though I live in Carter County, we have a lot of snakes here. I know my yard is not a great habitat for copperheads or timber rattlesnakes. Remember, there's always exceptions in nature, so I always keep my eye peeled. Now, if I had a yard that was more snake friendly, I would do a better job before I went out and dropped on my knees and started picking weeds. I might take a weed whacker, because that's an extension, a 6-foot extension of your arms, and chop some stuff down before I got down there to pull the roots out, because it gives me a better line of sight. I might try to do my weed pulling early on before the snakes come out of hibernation, do a bulk of it then, or on chillier days until the heat catches up. I might take a rake and smack, 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 and hit a 4-foot area and then work my way into it, picking weeds, because now I've disturbed anything that's in there and it's highly likely moved along. So I just try to use my head when I think I'm in a snaky area. So if we put this into perspective, I'm here to tell you, snakes aren't chasing you. They are not jumping off of cliffs and going for your jugular vein. They're really docile animals. They are. They have gotten a bad, bad reputation, and they really don't deserve it. Each year in this country, we have 335 million people. That's a lot of people. We spend a lot of time outdoors. There are 8,000 snake bites. 8,000. That's nothing. And I'm not going to compare it to, because you're not going to remember the numbers anyway, the deaths due to falling down stairs, or people getting hit by cars, or kicked by a horse, or other odd ways. But they all beat snake bite by tons. And 3,000 of those 8,000 bites are what they call an illegitimate bite. An illegitimate bite is when somebody was goofing with the snake. You know, like everybody's out drinking beer, like, hey, I'll give you $20 if you touch that snake, touch that rattlesnake, that kind of stuff. Or you're poking it with a stick because you don't want to leave it alone, because you can't, because you're like, you got to mess with it. Don't mess with venomous snakes. So really 3,000 of those, the aggravated the snake so much. The other ones were probably kind of surprises, where somebody did step over a log and didn't see the snake and they were bit. All right. That's not a lot. You need to find something else to worry about, honestly. And also I hike all the time, and I'm always looking for snakes. It's what I do. It's my favorite animal. It has been my whole life. I'm always looking for snakes. So I sat down and I figured out about how many snakes I've caught per year since I've been here. I've been here about 15 years. I've probably caught 500 snakes. At the same time, guess how many of them were venomous snakes? 6. There were 6 venomous snakes that I've seen in all that time. Now, venomous snakes are real and they exist. And there's no data on this that I could find, but I explain it to little kids like this. We'll use my motorcycle. If I got on my motorcycle and I drove to the Canadian border, no, that's not a good example. If I got in my Toyota Tacoma and I drove to the Canadian border, I would see 10,000 other Toyota Tacomas, because there's a lot of them. And I would see some Teslas, because Teslas are real, they exist. Maybe I'd see 50. It's kind of like that with our venomous snake species. All right, they're there, but there's just not as many. They like very specific habitat. They do not urbanize well. Some snake species live pretty well around our houses. Copperheads, generally speaking, and timbers almost always don't. They like areas with a lot of rocks and things like that. I don't mean like, oh, I have two rocks in my yard. I mean like rock veins, rock cliffs. They don't like being around people. So 6 out of 500 is not a lot of venomous snakes. Many people do coexist with snakes. And how I put that in perspective is, oh, I've got to hurry up here. I'm talking a little too long, but I'm ready to wrap it up. You guys work outside. If you get poison ivy, you know what poison ivy looks like in all its different forms, sticks, shrubs, vines. So you have learned not to touch it. And you have also learned that if you do touch it, you have a window of time to wash your hands. So therefore, you don't get poison ivy. You know what a yellow jacket looks like. You know that in the fall they run out of food and you keep your eyeballs peeled because now they're a little bit more aggressive. So if you're a hiker, you start to see the nests and they're more prominent and you don't get stung because you're looking for them and you see them because you've trained yourself. There are people that live in areas out west in Arizona, New Mexico that have many more venomous species of snakes than they don't have. And they live with them every day because they're there, they're in their yard. So they learn things like, last year when I took the tarp off the pool, I saw 4 snakes. So they're going to be ready for it this year. Or they don't leave the garage door open because that's a nice, cool place for a snake to go in a hot, hot climate. They close the garage door. They learn what time of year they see snakes for the first time when they come out of hibernation. So they know what block of time they don't have to worry about snakes being in their yard. They learn when the snakes kind of disappear and go into hibernation and they take note. They probably put it on the calendar. They learn what temperatures are too hot to see snakes in the yard. Hot snakes are cold-blooded animals, so they have to hide and find cooler places when it's hot out. If you want to work in your yard when it's like 85 degrees, go have at it. They will not be there. They will be hiding. They will be inside underneath the stone wall, not on top of it, catching rays. They can't hack it. Heat will kill a snake much faster than cold will kill a snake. And another thing, a great habitat is going to support all kinds of animals, and people get really bent out of shape. Like you see an owl in your yard, you go, "That's awesome!" A fox, that's great. A turtle, yay! Anything, a groundhog, hey, cool! I saw a groundhog. But you see a snake, and you like freak out. You guys know more than anybody that it's all connected. And I'll give you an example you can relate to. Leaving the leaves. If we keep raking up our leaves, we're raking up all kinds of insects that the birds need to eat throughout the winter, all the insect egg cases and things like that. We're throwing out cocoons. We're doing that. Let's do it for 4, 5, 6 years in a row. When you do it every year over time, guess what? You have less pollinators to pollinate the flowers that you want pollinated in your garden. So you get less flowers. When you get less flowers, you get less nectar for the pollinators to feed on. You get less seeds for the birds to eat in the fall and the winter. So when we insist on hating certain animals, like I hate spiders, I kill them. I hate sharks. I hate bats. I hate snakes. We are making a big mistake. It's a chain. And when we take one of those links out, we're going to pay the price because I don't want to tell you what this place would look like with uncontrolled mice and rats. It would be horrible. Talk about animals that carry diseases that affect humans. So if you allow yourself to stop having that knee-jerk reaction, you don't have to fall in love with snakes, but you don't have to kill them. I ID them all summer long on my phone, on my Facebook page, on my work email, and everybody says, "Hey, I found a snake in my garage. It's a copperhead." And I immediately say, and they'll send a picture, I'll say, "That's a milk snake. It's harmless. Leave it alone." Because if I don't immediately say that, they'll cut it in half. So we have to stop that behavior. And I am going to end here. I have more pictures to show you, but they're only snakes. And if somebody wants to, let's go to questions now. And if somebody has a question about a specific snake, I can click through and find it. Alrighty. So I don't know if there's any questions.
There was one question in the chat. Marilyn was asking the difference between the coral snake and the king snake. I think it was You had slide number 5, Connie.
Yeah, and I'm so sorry. I'm a little slow with these slides because I'm looking at all white slides after slide.
I know, this is, yeah. Okay, so there you go.
So there's the coral. He has a black head. To me, that snake, oh, I can't point with my little pointer because you can't see it. But if you look at his noggin, it might take you a minute to figure out which end is his head. He has a black head. This guy has a red head. And the order, so he's red, black, yellow. See, it depends on how you can't, that poem just doesn't work. You can count them from any direction. Red, yellow, black, yellow, red. They say the order matters, but I'm telling you, it won't work if you see a snake that's red, black, and yellow, just leave it alone. Unless you study snakes and you know what you're doing and you want to catch the scarlet king snake, then go right ahead. I know I have the skill level to catch venomous snakes. I would never do that. That's what dopey people do. I have no reason to catch a venomous snake. No reason. I guess we just have to remember that the value of wildlife isn't, and I understand when people don't like things, but the value of wildlife isn't based on my opinion of it or your opinion of it. You know what I mean? Like snakes are very, very valuable. And if we don't have any questions, I could
I think
try
we
to
saw a
find-
question. Oh, yeah, we have a
We
couple.
we have a question.
Okay.
I want to know what to do for dogs in a county that doesn't carry anti-venom.
Well, every hospital, if they have snakes in the area that they're responsible for, they are mandated to have anti-venom.
So I
So
take my dog to a hospital? Uh-huh.
you may be talking about a veterinarian, but no, you can't take your dog to a hospital. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I slipped a groove. So
I have asked around this county about what to do if my dog's bit, and they said we don't carry anti-venom. Just he won't die.
Now here's what I would do. I would go to the National Snakebite Support. Many of the bites on that page are not human bites. Those are animal bites, very often dogs. And they can tell you in your area the closest vet that has antivenom.
Okay.
And they will tell you that. And also in this
What's the name again?
The National Snakebite Support Facebook group.
Okay.
Because a lot of times people's dogs get bit and they go online and they say, my dog was just bit. It's 22 pounds. I think it was a blah, blah, blah. And those people will come back with the closest vet to you that has anti-venom is blah, blah, blah. And yeah, veterinarians aren't mandated to carry anti-venom. And I'll tell you why. And hospitals hate this stuff. It has a 2-year shelf life and it's expensive as heck. And they are forced to carry it. And most hospitals, year after year after year, just toss it out and get new stuff because they have to. And that's why vets don't have it, because it's a money loser for them in a big way. But do some homework ahead of time in case that should happen. And also, I'll tell you this, and I don't think it will work in this kind of habitat here, but areas out west that have a lot less vegetation, where you might find more rocks in your yard, like big rocks and stuff, you can actually take your dog to school for like snake, I don't know what they call it, but there are instructors in certain areas of the country that teach dogs to never mess with a snake. Granted, it has a lot to do, snake aversion therapy. And it has a lot to do with the dog itself. You know, it has to be the correct animal that's capable of learning all this. And all dogs are different to train, but it has a pretty good success rate. They learn somehow, don't go near that thing that's long and skinny. So that's another possibility, but I don't know.
I talked to someone in Alabama, and he says that they have antivenom down there, and he bought it and he carries it, but we can't get it here. So I don't know if I can buy it in another state that has more snakes.
But how can he administer it? Because it has to be compounded and dripped in. Like and I am not saying that your friend doesn't have what he thinks he has, but I am saying there's a billion things that you can buy online that has to do with snake bite stuff that doesn't work and it isn't the real thing. So
Okay.
I don't know, because you just can't here's an antivenom pill. I mean, you have to
Well,
sedate
he
the
said
dog.
he'll inject it. So I don't know.
I don't
It
need
was
it.
somebody we met. We don't really know him.
We don't really know him. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think so. But once again, if you hang out for just a little while on Snake Bite support page, you'll start reading that stuff and you'll get see, I don't know the stuff in reference to dogs because I don't have to because I don't have a dog.
Mhm.
But I would know more if I had a dog. But you can learn that stuff there if you
Okay.
really want to. It's a very well run site. It's very good. Just follow the rules or they'll toss you, like I said.
Yeah, because I
Yeah.
have met a lot of people here who've had their dog bit. Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
And some of them have died and some of them have lived, but then had bad health problems later. Hmm. And
Yeah.
some of them were fine. Mhm.
It is weird. And you guys, just so you know this, when it comes to snake bite, and this has to do with anything that's bitten, the severity of the bite is affected by two main things. The size of the person, or in this case, dog that was bit,
Mhm.
and the size of the snake. There is a myth,
Right.
for example, that, oh, you got to watch those baby snakes. Those baby snakes, they don't know how to control their venom and they give you everything they got. Well, guess what? Here's a baby copperhead. Who's going to have more venom? This copperhead or this copperhead? That's 4 feet
Mhm.
long. He is the 4 foot long. And if a 2-year-old kid gets bit by a 4 foot copperhead, that's going to be a much more severe bite than a baby snake biting me. I'm 150 pounds. All right. So those are the two
Right.
big factors. So that's why some dogs are like, it was a snake bite. The guy saw it happen, but he had a 110-pound shepherd and the dog was okay.
Mhm.
I believe here people have to load up their dog immediately, make arrangements on the phone and drive to Knoxville, which is probably almost 2 hours away to the hospital at the university to get treatment. It's not easy for animals. It's not easy for animals around here. Farther out west, many of the vets carry it because it's much more common.
Mhm.
Yep.
We have some more questions in the
Yes.
chat. Leslie asked, have you ever been bitten by a non-venomous snake?
Very good question. Absolutely. And a lot of times kids will ask me that when I do a program for children, I'll be holding a snake and they'll say, well, can it bite you? And sure it can because it has a mouth, but obviously, and I tell them, I said, this is my snake. I use it. It's used to me. It's never bitten me. And I just would be shocked if it ever did. But the bottom line is it could. So yes, of course, non-venomous snakes can bite. There's times when I'm out and I see a snake and I just have to have it. and maybe it's a time, I remember one time I saw a corn snake and I hadn't caught a corn snake ever. And I saw it and it was on its way to a stone wall and it was only like 5 feet away. And I knew if it made it to the stone wall, I'd never get it. And I didn't have my little snake stick because what I do is I pin them and then I scooch around and I find their head and I pick them up behind the head so they can't bite me. Well, I didn't have a stick. And I just went whoosh, and grabbed him right in the middle of his body. And he turned around and beamed me. But it was worth it to me because I'm here. And if you think about it, a 4 foot snake has a head. I'm trying to show you. Like they're tiny. They're tiny. So their teeth is like pointed sandpaper. It's really not that big a deal. Now, I don't like being bit by anything, even a mosquito. So I'm not saying it's fun. I don't like it. But it's a little tiny pinprick semicircle and you just wash with soap and water and you're done. It's not like, It's not like that because they don't have fangs.
Let's see if we can we've got three more questions on here. We're at 7:30, but
That's fine.
we'll just squeeze these in. Uh,
Alrighty.
Weevil, what WEVL says, um, uh, Copperhead got into their garage. They removed it with a hoe. It was docile, took it outside, but it came back. Was there a better way to deal with that?
That's really hard. That's really hard. As a matter of fact, if you took that example and let's bump it up a notch, there are people who have seen snakes on the property and maybe they've taken a picture and had them identified. Because every time I get a picture, like I told you before, everything's a venomous snake, but truly is a venomous snake. And they'll pay a professional to come in and remove the snakes. And it's really frustrating for the homeowners because those snakes, well, there's two things. So let's say the guy goes a mile away and dumps them. They'll find their way back. And if they don't find their way back because they were taken far, far away, then other snakes are just going to move in. So it's better for you to deal with your garage as far as how are they getting in and how can I plug up those holes? And that's not an easy task either. But if they've got a great place, they'll keep coming back to it. But
Okay.
what you did was great. Kind of.
And Toby asks, in what temperatures are snakes active? He was surprised to find two snakes in late December, a gray rat snake and a rough green. Sub-freezing, like it was today. What
It's
about that?
it's really weird. That's very, very unusual. I just got a snake photograph last week from someone who ran over a garter snake on one of these freezing days in her driveway, and there was snow on the ground. Now, I don't know how that happened, and I don't know what that snake was doing out. And what I think happened is some other animal, like a skunk or something like that, was out looking for food because we don't have skunks don't hibernate, raccoons don't hibernate, possums don't hibernate, even bears down here aren't true hibernators because it's not cold enough, long enough. So they're out digging up logs, looking for food. And let's say the skunk found a hibernating snake, took it out. Something happened, dropped the snake. It went that way. And I don't know why it was out there. Snakes will come out in surprisingly cool temps, but not these kind of temps. So, or it's very unusual.
Yeah.
Um,
Toby just corrected. He said he meant to say it was not sub-freezing.
good,
But it
good.
would have been cold, I believe, in
Yeah, it would have
December.
been cold, and
Cool.
they know what they're doing. So they're out there for a reason. Snakes sometimes wake up and they have to have water. Even I used to hibernate my snakes up in the attic and they had to have water. They'll come out of brumation, drink water, and go back. So it might have been like, I need water or I'm not going to make it until springtime. But generally speaking, from a time standpoint, at least where I live, I'll see my first snakes in probably by the second week of March. Um, Probably a little earlier for you guys. And then that's when they'll come out of hibernation and then they'll disappear usually by the last week of October as far as hibernation. So that's a rough guide as far as when they're not around.
Mm-hmm. I think we'll take this last question here from Jesse. They had lots of garter snakes in clusters of grass clippings in the yard, um, and tried to allow the grass to get a little longer to give them some habitat. The landlord is not in favor of that. How should you mow to keep them safe? Or
Yeah.
I mean, you have to maintain shrub
Normally,
grass, but
what I would do in a case like that is grass, as we all know, is a waste of space. And we will start doing grass differently, hopefully within the next 10 years. Um, there's really no benefit to grass. It's just what we do. It's just what, you know, you know how people go through phases with certain foundation plantings and a whole lot of mowed grass. So I guess what I'm saying is, unless you let it grow wild and it becomes hay, um, garter snakes will never pick grass, even if it was twice as long as you'd normally let it get, if they had another place to go. So in my yard, they'd pick my garden before they hung out in the grass. There's no cover in grass. I mean, there really isn't. And the only other thing I can think of, and this would be highly unusual, 1/3 of our snakes bear live birth, and the other ones are egg layers, and garters do have live birth. So if you happened upon an area with tall grass that female garter snake decided, I'm having my babies here, it might have just been the point of dispersal, but they hadn't dispersed yet. Because snakes, I never find snakes in grass. They want to be in the mulch, they want to be in the plantings, they want to be in the log pile, the rock pile. They're not going to be there because the birds are going to get them, the bullfrogs are going to eat them, and the blue jays will eat them, and the crows will eat them, big snakes will eat them. So that was weird. I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're at the end of our time. Connie, this was terrific. I know I'm thrilled when I see snakes. I don't see venomous ones in my yard, but it's all part of being a native plant gardener. This was terrific, and we thank you. We really appreciate you being with us tonight.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I'm sorry the slides got screwed up. But then again, I'm not surprised because it's
Well,
me.
we had them going great, and right at the last
I
minute,
know. I don't know what
hey,
happened.
something went wrong, but that's okay. We could see
That's
them,
okay.
and we made the recording. So thank you so much. And we'll just, our next seminar is going to be February 18th. And that's going to be on backyard ecology, keystone trees, and shrubs. So thank you, everyone, for coming.
Thank you.
All right. Good night.
Night.